Welcome to another episode of Mr. Beerwagen's Neighborhood. Today I am so excited. I can hardly stand myself because we have with us today Rhona Mahl Ellis, who is the Executive Director of Transitional Youth, which has been very dear to my heart for 2 decades. She has an amazing story, and I would like Rhona to tell us her story today about where she was born, and what happened for the first 20 years of her life. So, Rhona, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you're here.
I'm excited to be here too. I'm just really honored. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. Tell us your story.
Okay.
Tell us your story.
Sure. Well, it definitely ties into what I do today, working with transitional youth. But I was actually born into homelessness in New Orleans. Without saying too much, I will say that there's 7 kids and there's 6 dads. And so that'll tell you a lot without saying too much. 3 of my siblings and I, along with my dad and my mom, lived in our family car for the first 7 years of my life.
7 years?
For the first 7 years of my life, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't know anything any different. When you grow up in that, you don't know any different, and so I didn't think it was strange until much later in my life, and I thought, okay, now that does sound a little odd.
It's not what everybody else is doing.
It's not what everyone else is doing.
Or not everyone else, but
Yeah, my dad was a gambler, addicted to the road and to drinking and gambling, and we just went from city to city. He thought it was an adventurous, wonderful life. My mom really suffered underneath that. She had some mental health issues, was diagnosed actually with schizophrenia, which I don't believe that diagnosis, but there was a lot of kind of manifestation in her life that did play out a lot of the reason why we stayed in that kind of state for a long time. But for some reason, she had her eyes set on Portland and talked my dad into driving to Portland, and then she decided to run with her 4 last children. Her 3 she did walk away from and gave up. Whatever I do say about my mom or my dad, God is a redeemer, and I just so appreciate that that's not the end of the story,
right, So what happened? I mean, were you in the 3 or the 4? Did she run with you, or did she leave you with your dad?
She ran with us, actually.
Okay.
She ran with us, and we moved to Portland, and she ran from him.
Oh, so he didn't come here?
He did come here, but he soon left.
Okay.
When I was 10 years old, he left, and he never came back. I never knew what happened to him until much later in my life.
Okay.
But he literally left one day and never came back.
Wow.
And we never knew what happened. And so I was about 10 years old at that point. My mom was working 3 jobs to support the 4 kids that she was trying desperately to hold on to. And kind of one by one, she just could not manage raising children. And she signed my sister over to the state and then told me I was next. And so I beat her to the punch, and I ran at about 12 or 13 years old. And started
on the streets of Portland?
On the streets of Portland, yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of kids out there that age at that time. Wow. And so I was out on the streets and using drugs, and pretty much I had a death wish. I didn't have any reason or will to live. Life was just hard, very sad. I was a very sad girl, and was using drugs, and at the age of 14 ended up getting pregnant. And it was there that my life really did kind of turn, and most people would expect that it would turn for the worse, but for me it was something that literally rattled me to the core, changed my life. I was walking down the road, and I was high and pregnant and didn't know what I was going to do, and I didn't even have enough care in me to care about the next day, and I fell. And I didn't trip, I just literally went down, and I was instantly sober, instantly in my right mind and sober, and I heard these words, "This baby isn't going anywhere." And I know this is a crazy story for a lot of people, but this is my story, and it's true.
I want to hear this.
And I can't tell you that it was a lightning strike or hallelujah chorus or anything. I didn't know who God was, but I said, okay, God, if that's you, if that's what your voice sounds like, I need help. And it was from that point that instead of having despise for my life, I started to have hope, that I started to fight for my life rather than against it, and knew that I needed to get out of the situation that I was to care for this baby that was growing inside of me. And so I did, and that's a whole long story, but it was there that really my life turned, and I had something to hope for. And that little girl changed my life.
Wow. So you raised her?
I did raise her. Wow. I did raise her. Yeah. And it was once I had her, and I got back into school, an alternative school for teen moms and babies, and I graduated with a 4.5-year-old baby. Wow. Graduated high school with a 4.5-year-old. So we both got a diploma, which was really precious. But it was about that time that I knew that I needed to go back and help the kids that I once was. There were so many of us out there that were just kind of lost and had fallen through the cracks and were hopeless. And I made myself a promise. I made my daughter a promise. I made God a promise that I was going to come back and find some of those kids and offer hope.
How do you use that story and that background for helping other kids that are probably in very similar situations?
I think the greatest area that it translates is that I truly do have hope for them. So there's so much of our society. There's a lot of throwaway people, right? I mean, we can dismiss people for where they come from or where they're at and think that there's no hope for them. But because I was in such a desperate situation, literally sleeping under a bridge, literally, in and out of JDH and using drugs, and I was saved. I was rescued. I gained traction, and my life changed. And it took hard work. It took faith, but it was possible. Yeah. Something that I thought was absolutely impossible. And so when I look at the young people that we work with now, I have immediate hope.
You do?
I do. I look at them and I just see gold. I see treasure. I see opportunity. And to come from hardship, a lot of people will maybe feel sorry for the kids or say, I'm so sorry you went through that. But in a way, sometimes it can be used as a gift. Yeah. Because there's so many out there. And to have a life that is transformed, it offers hope for so many other people. So I look at these young people and I immediately see potential. Yeah. And I get excited. Yeah. I know if God can do it for me, He can certainly do it for them.
Yeah. As you were telling that story, your story, I started these emotions, and I'm sure a lot of these people that are watching this will feel that way, where I felt sorry for you. I felt like that, wow, that was so hard, and how could you live in a car for 7 years? And then I realized that you were, earlier, before we were talking about how the story is not necessarily about you. It's about you being redeemed, about being saved out of that.
That's it.
And so to train myself to not feel bad about some of those experiences for you, but that God was just essentially preparing you to do exactly what you're doing now. There's nobody out there that these kids would believe when you say there's hope. And they say, no, there's no hope. And you could say, I got a story to tell you.
Yes. It's so true. And there's kind of an immediate trust that is built in those moments too, because they don't think people understand where they're coming from or what they've gone through or the hopelessness they feel or the mountains that are before them that they have to climb. And when they meet someone that just gets it, it takes that pressure away. It's like, okay, we can start from square one. It's a clean slate and we can start here. So it's been a powerful tool. I try not to overuse it, but this is my journey and it's why I do what I do today.
Yeah. The first thing I want to do is just thank you for being willing to share that story. That's opening yourself up to us. And I think it just sets a tone for some of these other things that we're going to talk about. But thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.